Hey everybody, I am Danny Otto. Welcome into another episode of That Recap Show. Now, before we get into the episode, just want to issue major spoiler alert. We are going to be going over everything that happened in episode 4 of the Andor series. So if you haven't checked that out yet, you may want to pause this video, head over to Disney Plus, watch that episode, and then come back and enjoy the breakdown. Now, with that out of the way, let's start the show.
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
All right, joining with me to break down everything from episode 4 of the Andor series, it's Johnny Rico.
Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's going good. You know what? I really did want another episode after this one. It felt out of place only having one, but at the same time, it was much easier to be able to break down one episode at a time. So I am appreciative that we only have episode 4 to break down today. But
yeah,
it was a great episode. I mean, no complaints about the episode at all. I actually wanted more with the buildup we got, and that we'll talk about throughout this episode. But I mean, initial reactions. I feel like this could have been called basically the deputy inspector's no good, very bad day, basically. Because, I mean, we had that whole side story of him basically getting reprimanded. We see him getting fired. We see him going home. We see him going to his mother's house, basically, with his bags packed because he got fired and everything. And the only thing I could think of that would have made that whole, like, plot line of him getting fired, going home, and all of stuff was Arrested Development. Do you remember like the running bit that they had when everybody got sad and they took the sad walk with their head down like this? And it was playing like all the Charlie Brown music, and I was like, that's the only thing that I can think of during this that would have made that whole thing like just, it would have made it perfect. It would have made it into a Star Wars themed sitcom, basically.
Right.
A workplace sitcom that's just happens to be set in the Star Wars universe. But I mean, I could go on for forever, like I always say. But initial reactions, I loved the episode. I love that we got a really fun build-up that I'm looking forward to the next episode towards. And I mean, other than that, Rico, what were some of your instant reactions from episode 4?
Yeah. Oh my. Yeah. I absolutely loved this episode. Kind of going back on what you were saying earlier, like I wanted more. Yeah. I would say like the minor complaint I have would have to be the fact that the episodes really just kind of like end like it really in the most like awkward like points. I feel like you don't really feel like they're wrapping the episode up, but you hear that the music kind of start to ramp up and like, oh, they're about to end the episode, aren't they? Dang it, I want more. Like, give me more. Like it feels like as soon as I start getting like invested into like the main story of the episode is when they take it away from me. And I feel like that's a really cool thing, but also like a little thing that bothers me about the show. But man, some of the things I loved about this episode was the fact that we're back in Coruscant, which is really cool. One of the main planets, of course, from the prequels. It's just like this main, it's essentially like a city planet, a planet that's an entire city, which I think is really cool. And we got to see like a lot more of the organizations within Coruscant, because usually we're used to seeing like the Republic, the Council, and stuff like that, and then the Jedi Temple and everywhere that we see over there throughout the prequels. But here we see stuff like the Imperial Security Bureau. I thought that was a really cool location to kind of see, and just kind of giving us a little bit more insight into how the Empire works and stuff like that, and just how greed is kind of their downfall at the end of the day. Just exactly what Cassian and all them are looking to expose. But another cool thing is that this show really gives me like Game of Thrones vibes with the way everyone's kind of like talking around and doesn't trust each other, and everyone's kind of playing their own game and looking to kind of forward their own motives. And but another cool thing about that is that we have quite a few actors in this show that are from Game of Thrones, of course. One of the head deputy people from Orlana is Jon Royce from Game of Thrones. And then, of course, Vel, who was the leader of the crew that Cassian meets in this episode, played the waif. Who, if you remember her with her Arya Stark and Game of Thrones, with that. And then, of course, Partagaz, who's like the major from the Imperial officers that we see in the Imperial Security Bureau right there in the center. He was Qyburn in Game of Thrones. So I was like, oh my gosh, just they're bringing a lot of Game of Thrones actors into Star Wars recently, and I think it's really cool how they're all working in the roles they've been given. So as a fan of both worlds, it's just kind of really cool to see everything kind of come together in that kind of way. But another thing I'm really liking is the character of Dedra Meero, who's also another Imperial officer who's kind of shades of Cyril Karn, the deputy inspector that we met in the first 3 episodes, but more in an Imperial sense. They're both kind of like these young up and comers who
the go-getters.
Yeah, they're go-getters, exactly. They're kind of taking every step they can take to kind of forward their careers, and it kind of gets under the skin of the people who have been around longer than them. So that's kind of like a cool budding rivalry they kind of set up within the Empire itself. But yeah, they keep introducing new interesting characters and forwarding a very well written storyline. So I'm loving the show.
Absolutely agree. The only thing I wanted to add was when they showed like some of the shots for Coruscant, which were really cool. I love the space shot that we got just as an introduction to the planet. It was very reminiscent of like almost like Guardians of the Galaxy when we were going to different areas and stuff, and they were putting the text on the screen to tell us where we were and stuff. But there's the one shot where they give us the view. Number one, I'm on the East Coast. To me, this looks immediately like New York City. Aerial shot, New York City. But also, what it reminded me of was the Fifth Element, just a futuristic metropolis, basically, and that's that's the setting for Fifth Element to a T.
Flying cars.
Yeah, exactly. Like if we threw in some flying cars there, then it's Fifth Element shot right there. But that's just like it just popped into my head. I had to add a pop culture reference right there, and it just they're both sci-fi. We could throw them in together. Maybe they exist together. Anyway, you want to get to some big takeaways?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to kick this off. We kind of already hinted at this where there was like there's a very nice buildup in this episode. And not only like a singular buildup, which I really do enjoy. Obviously, I love Cassian as a character, and so like having him as like the main story and the main storyline that we're kind of following for the most part, where he is our main character. And so we're seeing how the building is happening with that, which is basically slowly showing us how he's getting involved with the rebellion and how he's getting his feet wet and how, the first major part of that is going to happen next episode, basically with a heist and stuff like that. But also, I really like how we had multiple storylines that are slowly starting to build. We did have the Dedra officer storyline, basically, where we see that she's a little interested in what got stolen and why it happened, because she's been looking into other thefts and thinks that there's some sort of pattern. So now we have that storyline that's slowly on the back burner building. We also have the deputy inspector storyline, who, like I said, no good, very bad day for him. But now we're at a really big turning point. Like, for his story, we don't know what's going to happen with that. There's got to be a build, because we're not just going to do that and then just dump him off and never see him again. So we have that storyline kind of diverging and kind of playing out at the same time. And I just really appreciate, and I've said this multiple times in recap videos, not just for this series, but in series in general, I really appreciate when we can get multiple storylines and they all feel like they're built out respectively. Like, I know all of this, the overarching storyline in general, is all building to show us how the rebellion, rose up and how this all happened. And I get it. And it's all leading to Rogue One and everything like that. But the fact that we can have all of these storylines that are at the same time individual and adding into the central storyline, I think is great. And I really do enjoy that about the series, because none of them feel out of place. None of them feel like, why did we just waste 5 minutes on that? Like, none of them feel like that. They all feel like they're given dedicated time, and they're like, it's quick enough to go back to another storyline and to still cycle through here and seeing what's happening with all of our major characters at the same time, while still, like you said, introducing new characters that are also having their own go about during this type of thing. And
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to highlight that because I think that's, I think that's really cool when a series can do that and actually draw me into multiple storylines. And I'm not like, okay, this is cool, let me get back to the main character and stuff like that. I really appreciate that. But anyway, that was my biggest takeaway. Rico, what were some of your takeaways from episode 4?
Yeah, so I think one of the things I think that stands out to me most about not just this episode but the series in general is the character Luthen, played by Stellan Skarsgard. I think that he's just kind of, I think, probably the most interesting character on the show right now. Of course, like the way he kind of talks Cassian into joining Vel's crew is just a great way to start off the episode, kind of picking up where we left off. Um, he's just really great at giving like those like inspirational speeches, in my opinion. And like every single time he's done the show, it's been really great. But then like we see another side of him in this episode where like he's in like he's in his ship and he's getting up at nice skies and like he's kind of suiting himself up to be kind of like a fitting in with the kind of Republic Senate types, like the rich people, kind of put up this front of an antiquity shop owner basically.
Yeah.
And that's where we see Mon Mothma for the first time. And they have this really cool like kind of dialogue exchange where it's like, hey, I'm here to get a present for my husband. It's his day of days that they're calling it. And okay, I got some cool stuff. How about this? Like, oh, my husband doesn't like the war stuff. And so and they make great use of his assistant in this scene too, because she kind of uses this moment to kind of take Mon Mothma's driver slash kind of like lookout slash spy, to kind of like, hey, want to go look at some cool coins? Like, oh yeah, let's
Yeah.
come over here. And then that gives them the chance to go out to the back and have their actual conversation, which reveals that Mon Mothma is actually kind of helping fund this whole rebellion cause that Stellan's kind of starting to or not Stellan, but Luthen is starting to start up here.
Right.
And he wants Cassian to be a part of it, of course. So we start to see where Mon Mothma's role in the rebellion kind of starts there. And of course, she mentions she's got someone else that's helping her out too, and we have yet to see who that is. We have our ideas of who it could be. Of course, it could be Bail, it could be Leia, it could be either one right now at this point in the storyline. But the scene in that antiquity shop was exactly what I wanted out of Star Wars. This whole like putting up the front of this one conversation to fool these people, and then that way you can go back and have the actual conversations. That's the real like kind of under the rug kind of stuff you want to see like in these spy shows. So that's really what I'm loving about this series so far, and that's what I want more of. Like I don't like even this episode wasn't super action heavy. This is all a lot of well written dialogue, and I'm happy if we get that most of the series, to be honest.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. Actually, going right off of what you said, the one of the actiony parts that I did want to highlight, and I completely forgot to highlight, was just when we had Cassian meeting the leader of the team, I guess, of the heist, basically, or of the future heist, I guess, at this point. But they have a scene where they're traveling back to their base camp, and we have TIE fighters fly over, and they get really scared and hide, and it made me think about that, because we're so used to, or at least I am so used to, in the main Skywalker storyline for Star Wars, TIE fighters are TIE fighters, and it's just like, whatever, like, we're going to shoot them down, or we're going to blow them up with something, or we have a lightsaber, or, you know what I mean? Like, they're not like scary. But like to the average person in the Star Wars universe, they're terrifying. They're flying death machines with multiple laser cannons on them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're terrifying. So it made me think of that, because you could see the fear in them hiding from not only wanting to not be seen, but also, not wanting to be shot by a TIE fighter, with nothing, like nothing to hide from, basically, type of thing.
And also, this is a time where there is no Jedi, and the Empire is really at the height of its power at this point. So it's like it's supposed to really give off that sense of power that they really have at this point in the story, which I think is a really good job of that. Like, those are policing vehicles that really bring a sense of fear to you when you see them that classic TIE fighter roar come by. Like, you really feel it in this episode, which I think was really cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. You want to get to some predictions?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, why don't you kick us off?
So this episode, we've talked a lot about really the other side storylines of this episode so far, and not really so much about our main boy Cassian. who really this whole episode was really just about him meeting Vel and her crew and kind of getting acclimated in that first day. So they did a really good job of setting up what his next mission is, and then of course who he's going to be working with, and and then of course setting up what the actual plan of the heist is going to be at the end of the episode, which is really cool. They had a really cool model and everything, kind of laying out how they were going to do it, everything, which I thought was really cool. Everyone had a job, and they have like a purpose to really carry out, which I really love the way they really put that much attention to detail into what everyone's going to do and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see that story progress over whether it's just this one next episode or the next 2 episodes. Like, who knows when we're gonna get this high, because it feels like we're getting these like kind of story arc type deals with Cassian. Like, okay, so we got that first deal, the first 3 episodes. I got him off of the planet he was staying on before, and who knows if this is going to be just like a 1 or 2 episode type deal, or if it's going to be a 3 episode arc that again would just kind of that's what these like sudden endings kind of feel like. Like they want you to look forward to the next part, and if the next episode ends the same way, then we'll know that. And then I want every little storyline to kind of feel like it has like a little pin at the end of it, you know. So yeah, that's, and again, I'm overall just to see the overall growth of the rebellion, because like we got to mention Asara Guerrera in this episode. So
We
of
did.
course we know about him. He's around there somewhere. He's going to show up eventually. So again, I'm looking forward to seeing him and Luthen interact, because I feel like that's going to be a really cool scene when those two share the screen together. So I'm looking forward to that probably more than anything.
Yeah. That's gonna be awesome. Like just seeing connections from we're slowly getting those connections because we are like, I mean, this is working towards Rogue One, which is working towards the original trilogy. So like we are sinking into and having storylines being able to kind of sync up, and like when other characters have crossed paths earlier
Yeah.
than what we have so far. And it's really cool to see that. I totally agree. I'm right there with you. I do like having things have pinpoints in them, and knowing that. I could definitely see what you're talking about, because when I finished this episode, when this episode ended, I was like, okay, where's the next one? Like, I want to see the
Yeah.
heist now. Like, we're building, like literally we're building to a heist that's happening in 2 or 3
Mhm.
days. Like, okay, give me that one. Where's that? So my guess is, if you're right, if it is going to be like 3 arcs, like three episode arcs, I could see the next one having part of the heist happen, and maybe some stuff goes awry, and then we end on a cliffhanger, and then it gets resolved in a third episode, like in episode 6, basically it would then
Right.
get resolved, and then we'd have
Right.
another 3 episode. Like, I could see that happening. I could very easily see the heist being 2-parter. And that would go right into what you're saying, the 3-part arc. I hope they don't do that unless they release the 2 episodes at the same time, because I'd really like to see all of the heist. But I can't complain, because I really did. I mean, it served its purpose, because when I ended the episode, I wanted another episode, and that's the purpose. It's to
Yeah.
end and to leave you wanting more, and so it did that. The only thing as far as a prediction, and we were talking about this before we started recording, basically, and you were like, "Yeah, you should probably say that," because I was just thinking out loud, like you're just talking about the episode with you, as we do. We don't just get on here and then start talking about the episode. We talk about the episode like as soon as we watch it, and stuff like that. But I could see, yeah, peek behind the curtains.
Yeah.
Okay, so going back to 2 characters who had not great days. The first one had a no good, very bad day, and I'm going to say that for the end of time, until the end of time. Deputy Inspector, who I guess is no longer a Deputy Inspector, had a real bad day. So he's fired and living with his mom right now. That's where we've left him after this episode.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking right now there are 2 paths he can go, because like I said, I don't think there's any way we're just never going to hear from him again, and that's it. Like, one is, he's like, I'm gonna get my job back. I'm gonna prove that I deserve to work for the Empire. I deserve to have be the head inspector. Blah blah blah. Like, that's one path, and he goes and tries to find Cassian on his own, and whatever happens, because we know Cassian makes it at least until the end of Rogue One. The other idea I had, the other path, we'll call that path B, is he's just like, you know what? Screw the Empire. I'm gonna see what these people were trying to do, And then he starts uncovering it and goes, oh shit, they're the good guys. I wasn't the good guy. I thought I was the good guy. And then he tries to work with them.
Right.
And then we see him also, like, by the end of this season, working for the rebellion and stuff like that, and putting his skills to good use for the rebellion and actually working side by side. I could see an element in there where it would be not a funny, not like a twist almost, where like he ends up saving Cassian at some point. I could see that happening, and that being like not a redemption arc because he didn't do anything like wrong. But just as like a twist of like Cassian didn't trust him because, you know, he was chasing him before, and now he proves it by saving him at some point.
Yeah.
Type of thing. I could see that happening. I think it would be a really cool kind of little twist. But I like I said, I just think it could be. There's two paths right now. We don't know what's going to happen after this episode, but I think one of those two paths is where we're going, and that's what I'm looking forward to seeing, is to see where his character develops and where it goes from here.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if, because I did mention how there's kind of similarities between him and Dedra Meero, of course, being like she's like basically the Imperial version of him, but she's actually kind of good at her job. And but their commonality is that they both kind of get like suppressed by the higher ups, essentially.
Right.
But I wonder if that's gonna, like, if what's it, Cyril Karn, that is the official name. I want to call him Deputy Inspector, but I just want to make sure that we know his real name is Cyril Karn. And but if he does go that route where he goes like, you know, F all this, and we're just gonna go and help the rebellion, or you put us in a scenario where he does end up helping Cassian in some form, not necessarily joining the rebellion, but if he goes on kind of a collision course with Dedra, that would be kind of a cool little, like, you know, the antithesis of each other, kind of going up against each other in a little duel. One of them's gonna come out on top, and it's probably gonna be Dedra.
you know that brings up another point. Like, mentioning Dedra, like, she was very interested in the whole, like, what was going on, and she wanted to take control of that situation and everything. So there's a part of me that also is wondering if she has something to do with the rebellion, because this show, like you said in the beginning, I don't know if it was in your takeaways or your initial stuff, is one thing that you and I are appreciating about this is that we don't know who's working for the rebellion. We don't know until we're clued in. We don't know
who to trust.
Exactly. So maybe she does, like, maybe we're going to find out that she does have some ties to the rebellion type of thing. And that's why she was overly interested, was because she was trying to either A, cover something up, or B, hoping that those people made it out okay. Like that we're working with the rebellion type of thing, and make sure that they don't find out and blow her cover overall type of thing. There's so many different angles at this, and that's why it's so interesting to watch and to see, like, when a new character is introduced. Yeah, because we just don't know what's going to end up happening with that character. It's the sky's the limit at this point. But
100%.
Yeah, but anyway, that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think of episode 4? And do you think we're going to get the heist in episode 5? I don't want to assume anything at this point. We could have a completely different scenario episode for episode 5. And what do you think is going to happen with ex-deputy inspector moving forward? My vote is, I really hope that he ends up saving Cassian at some point, whether he joins the rebellion or not. I want that. And as always, don't forget, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of our video releases. Bye, everybody!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.